Belgian pavé, once the typical chassis breaker of the national roads, has now all but disappeared. It took painstaking research and careful signposting to mark out a 110-mile circuit consisting of nothing but the wretched stuff, and who, you may ask, would ever want to try? This was to be yet another motoring adventure in the Roots Group manner. Object, to drive, observed, non-stop, and at an overall average of more than 40 miles an hour for 20 days and nights on genuine Belgian pavé. The car, a Hillman Minx. The drivers, some of the most distinguished British Minxes in international motoring. A very sporting undertaking, and a striking proof of the practical worth of the car, should it come off. Sheila van Damm, making a welcome return from retirement, was to open the bowling. But this was a serious project, arranged with the customary method and purpose of team manager Norman Garrett, for whom, you will remember, there are no excuses. The old enemy again, and with the first Belgian RAC observer in the back and Sheila at the wheel, the car moves off for the start of its shock treatment. The minimum target average of 40 miles an hour for 3 weeks meant getting a considerable hustle on, and conditions were far from ideal. Quick, which way? That foggy first lap had its moments, but the girls and the Minx were to get to know virtually every cobblestone by name, and very unpleasant names too, some of them earned. Needless to say, the roads were open to normal traffic the whole time. This was to be a test under normal, though exaggerated conditions. And even though, because of the shocking surface deliberately selected, most of the circuit lay along minor roads, the amount of traffic encountered in the towns certainly did not help to keep up the average speed. Holland may be the land of canals, but in this part of Belgium there's certainly no shortage of waterways. With roads like this, one can see why. The suburbs of Antwerp are skirted, and at Lier it's market day, but no time for the ladies to indulge in even a little window shopping. And you would, wouldn't you? Well, that's the first piece of civilized surface so far, but it doesn't last for long. This Minx was going places, and going faster than most. But precisely where he was going must have been something of a problem for the RAC observer in the back. And this pounding, remember, was to go on for 3 weeks solid, though there was little danger of monotony setting in. Ah, here's an interesting situation. Let's hope the engine driver has spotted that we have a lady at the wheel. He has. Toujours la politesse. You'll have noticed that almost all these bridges are of the kind which can be opened. No doubt the thought also crossed Sheila van Damm's mind as she lost no time in making up minutes against the high average. But there's not very much that one can do about this situation, except perhaps to reflect for a moment or two. And we're certainly not out of the wood yet. Meantime, back at the camp, all is calm. The first lap is completed with plenty of time in hand, and the long routine is underway. This circuit of the pavé was in fact about as tortuous as the contours of its surface. Deliberately seeking out the most punishing sections available, it twisted and turned along the byways of Flanders for 110 miles of remorseless pounding. And tough as we know our Lady Long Distance champions to be, while the car was receiving normal refueling and service, after a couple of laps of this, they were quite content to change crews. One European ladies champion hands over to another, and as Nancy Mitchell takes over, so does a fresh observer, and Francoise Clark has just remembered why she came. All set, we're off again. Once again, the short take-off run along the exhibition highway. But what's this, balking already? Nancy, however, has driven on the continent once or twice before. Left or right? Oh well, it's all one to her. We have heard, but that must be where the Coupes come from. We never could understand why those things are called level crossings, but of course the rougher the better for this job. News of the enterprise had now spread around, but it is just possible that this particular group of spectators may have been connected with the motor trade. And if they were Belgian car dealers, they could scarcely have seen a more convincing demonstration of British wares. And there surely is the face of a man who is happy in his work. But most motorists would be happier if he'd turn his attentions to that little lot. The Minx runs happily on her way, and the mileage steadily mounts. Mary Handley Page continues her family tradition for high-speed research, and she now follows in the well-worn wheel tracks of Sheila and Nancy. Not that any wheel could make any sort of a track on this stuff. And so it continues, lap after lap, with the Minx turning into the service station, not as regular as a train, remember that fog at the beginning, but a lot more regular, with the precision, in fact, of the fine piece of engineering that it is. Day after day, night after night, the crews take time out for rest and refreshment. The car takes refreshment, but no rest. This becomes a human effort as well as a mechanical one. The declared goal is still some thousands of miles away. Speed and the open road are a chancy combination, and this road was chosen because it's rugged. While the car and the ladies worked away on the circuit, the team manager and his assistant kept a careful watch on progress. Not for them, the gay nightlife of the continent. The lights may have beckoned, but there was work to be done. Every 2 hours and 40 minutes or thereabouts, the car came in. The routine of service and observation was speedily dispatched. The figures of time and distance steadily mounted, but the average at over 40 miles in every hour remained as steady as the car itself. And so it went on, into the day, into the next day, and the next, and the next, and the next. The car and its crews were now well known to the local people around the circuit, who gradually entered into the spirit of the thing. English men they had always suspected were slightly mad. Now it appeared that their women folk were capable of some eccentricity too. What, after all, could be more natural? The road to hell, they say, is paved with good intentions, mounted presumably on pave. Sheila could scarcely have lost her way, so this must have been purely a social call. Ah, the Owen Road. It had to come. They're keen, these girls, and fit too.
10 kilometers.
As the mileage passed the 10,000 mark, with 5,500 still to go, the tension, if anything, increased. But here she comes again. Mary Handley Page at the wheel, Tishy Ozan waiting and ready to keep up the treatment. And that is precisely what she is asked to do. No flashy stuff, just the same steady high-speed hammering along the cobbles, and keep the lap time within 2 3/4 hours for the 110 miles. And that sort of thing is right up Tishy's street, or pathway. By this time, some of the official observers were beginning to show signs of wear, but the car never moved on the road without them. And by now, quite a lot of the road was moving on the car.
Okay.
The adventure, which started on Shrove Tuesday, had seen out the 18 remaining days of February. And despite the predictions of local experts who had said this was impossible, they had turned decisively in favor of the car. 1,000 miles on Belgian pave equals a lifetime of punishment for the average European car. So says the British Motor Industry Research Association. At that rate, this car was now in its 15th year. For in 20 days and nights, it completed 141 laps of that shocking circuit of the pave, at an overall average of 41 miles an hour. A total distance of over 15,500 miles was covered, the equivalent of 3/5 of the Earth's circumference at the equator. And that's a fair enough comparison, for it is by shock treatment tests such as this that the cars of the Roots Group are fitted for the roadways.